Welcome to another episode of Ronin's Den. This is GM Duality Complex, as always, with the Dragon X here, and we have an exciting guest, Telarius Game Master, on with us. Dragon, you got some stuff for us?
Yeah, as not as always, but as same as last week, we are sponsored by W Energy Drink. If you go to their website and use the promo code DEN Energy when you check out, you will get 10% off. And it gives a little bit back to us so we can get more cool stuff to review and talk about in the future. Yes, we are here with Telarius, aka Telarius Game Master, the creator of the Legends of Kralis. And this should be an exciting interview. I've been a fan of Levi and his game for a very long time. And I'm looking forward to picking his brain about everything Kralis. So, well, even if you have a small brain, I doubt that because of how big these books are. You have a player's handbook, a dungeon master's guide, a bestiary, Game Master's Guide, Dungeon Master's trademarked, as we all know, Game Master's Guide, as well as a bunch of world stuff that I don't think you've actually published or got anything written up concisely yet for. But hey, Levi, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody, tell everyone about yourself, and about your game, The Legends of Kralis.
Oh, sure. Throw the ball at my court for that. Well, my name is Levi. I'm one of three Telarius Game Masters now. There's actually three of us in the world beyond. So it's just no longer my title. I've created Legends of Kralis. It is a science fantasy D100 roll under system for the mechanically wise that incorporates all the standard fantasy tropes along with standard science fiction tropes and put them in the blender and I hit puree. That's essentially the core at the essence of Legends of Kralis. There's a lot to it. There really is. There's an entire player's guide, which basically takes you as a player through the creation and continuation of your character. It is a classless system. That means you don't get to go pick a dwarf barbarian with a subclass or any of this other stuff. You create your character and design it each rank as you go up in rank. Rank is essentially my concept of levels without using levels. You can also play the game without ranks and just go. So it depends on what you want to do as what your GM wants to do. And that's all contained in the Game Master's Guide. The Player's Guide is literally the Player's Guide. It has everything you need to be in it to be a player, from the 15 standard races to the skills, the abilities, spellcast, magic spells, divine spells, Jinhur capabilities, all the way through combat, void, spaceship creation rules that are in this and all that. And then we end up with the Telarius Bestiary, Legends of Kralis, the Bestiary Guide, which contains, I want to say 350 monsters. Some are categorized in monsters. Some are categorized into the same thing, like giants, right? So there's like giants, and there's subcategories of those, and then there's Haju, and then there's subcategories of those, and there's vampires, and there's subcategories with those being broken out into like from fledgling to patriarchs. So there's all kinds of different species and monsters that are in there, and then also in the Bestiary Guide, there are a number of additional monstrous humanoids that can be played as PCs if you want, and those rules are in there as well. So that's it in a small drop of bucket, I guess.
Okay.
So
I guess I have one of my initial questions on that is when you blended the fantasy and the sci-fi together, so they live next to each other during gameplay, right?
Right.
When you were doing that, did you have any kind of balance concerns or anything getting those two genres to work together? It's not something you see a whole lot of out there in the TTRPG world. Like techno fantasy. People usually try to stay within one narrow category, and I love broad category games.
So the way I actually explain to people, Legends of Kralis sits in that space between the high fantasy of a lot of the games, and I'll use D&D as a main point reference, and Shadowrun. It fills that gap in there. And when it comes to balance issues within Legends of Kralis, everything is a roll under skill, right? Which is similar to Shadowrun, or if those of you who are listening are basic role playing called Cthulhu, except we've added successes to that, which is basically taking the PIP rule system from World of Darkness. Instead of rolling multiple D10, we just crunched it into a single D100 with a roll under. And the more successes you get, the more you can do. And so then we just had to set, how much does an energy rifle actually do damage-wise? Okay, compare that to let's say for you guys, we call them Imperial swords, but let's say claymores, right? How much does that comparatively do, right? So what we did is we gave each of those different weapon types values when you want to talk about that. So that's basically where that comes down from, right? But the skills are the skills. Whether you're using lore tech, lore magic, arcane, languages, what have you, or healing, or stealth, or armor, and armor proficiency, not armor proficiency, but oh my gosh, smithing and those kind of things. It's all based off of your skill level, right? So the higher your skill level is, the better you are at that potentially. Can you steal fell? Yes. There's always a 5% chance of being, it just something fucks up with it. And then there's a 5% chance that you fuck it up in the good way, like really, really well. You do it really, really, really well, which is our critical hits system part of it. So balance wise, I haven't come across an issue. My Friday night game on Twitch, currently those characters are ranked 27, 28, and 38. And haven't run into, and they've actually gotten their butts whipped twice. I've killed 2 of them already at 21st and 22nd rank.
I know in the few times that I've played, balance always seemed balanced, but it definitely had this feeling that you could fuck up royally and die at any minute. And I don't think that's a negative. I think that's kind of a positive. It's too many games now. It seems like there's no consequence, where Legends feels like you're playing in a system that is designed to challenge you a little bit, and at the same time you can do all these fantastic things, but it is very dangerous. And I appreciate that more than abhor that, if that's the term I want to use, if that makes any sense.
No, that makes sense, right? Legends of Kralis is very spiky. It really is. You could be average, doing average, and then suddenly you do something really, really well. Or on the opposite hand, you could fuck it up really, really badly. And so you have these high peaks and these low valleys of, I did really well, and I fucked it so bad.
And I think that makes it really good. I love that. I don't like systems that it's just like there's all these highs and there's no consequences and there's no threat of death. D&D 5e is one of those systems that you almost feel like you're never going to die, and Kralis is kind of a strong contrast to that. So when you were designing the game, you mentioned that it is a skill system and a skill-based system with no classes. What was the mindset behind that, and what was the reasoning? I particularly love that there's no classes and you can make anything. The one character that I made that I always tell people I made
Nesra?
Is when I made Tigger.
Tigger, right.
Which from Winnie the Pooh, I literally made a tiger that could jump and bounce, and it didn't feel like it was out of place at all in Kralis. And I love that you went with that. But what was the thought process behind making it the way that it came out?
There's the thought process behind it is, I hate limitations. I hate the limitations. I hate the limitations that classes actually impose upon you. And they do impose certain limitations. And that's because those within Dungeons and Dragons or other games that have those kind of where there's classes are required, there's a limitation of what your character can do. Now, that was the impetus behind that, right? I did not even when I was playing way back when in the 70s and 80s, I hated classes because, I wanted to do X. Well, you can't. Why? Because your class is X. Oh, okay, well, I'll sit here for a round. And I hated that. I hated that feeling. So going classless, and there's a lot of game systems out there that are classless, allow you to develop your character any way that you want, right? You're not stuck. Right. And with Legends of Kralis, you can change your character concept from rank to rank to rank. You can start off a thief and then suddenly, I really like this ability. And suddenly you become you add spell casting to that. And not just like one or two or three spells, you become a full on caster. And then you're like, well, I want to become more of a bardic type character. Then you can change that. And it's just, you follow your own character path. The downside of that is without classes, we are 31 flavors, while everybody else with classes is kind of like McDonald's. You've got 3 flavors, and that's it, right? I mean that's the best way I can do it. We have, and it's horrible. Choice paralyzation is a real thing in Legends of Kralis and the reason why that is because people want to make the most optimized characters that they can make right from the beginning. And Legends of Kralis literally looks at that and says, you can be whatever you want to be, and you can change how you come across and play the game every single rank. You don't like what you're doing? Change it.
So I guess the follow-up question to this is, you mentioned that everybody wants to optimize at the beginning, and Kralis, that seems like it's hard to do. How do you... I guess that term balance comes back again. How does Kralis handle the fact that you theoretically could make a rank 1 stinker of a character that just does not mesh at all? Is that something that was a fear coming into when you were building the game, or did you just think, let people play what they want? If they're a little underpowered, that's just going to be part of the nuance of the system? Or have you had any experience where somebody came in with a character at rank 1 and you're like, yeah, this is not gonna work? What has been the process there?
So there has never been, in the number of times that I've GM'd and I've had players, there's been a character that has come in as a weak character. You start off pretty strong right off the bat, right? I mean, your first rank, you're going to suck at just about everything. But as you get stronger and progress further and further down the road, you become stronger. And again, you can change what you want to become or what you want to do. There's only been one person that I can actually think of that actually decided to create a character that was completely unusable because they just wanted to create an unusable character with the party. And after the first couple of game sessions, everybody's like, dude, you got to change your character concept. It's not working with us. And it's because he chose to do that. But that doesn't mean that his character concept was weak. It was just the way he was playing him, the way he was deciding to make certain decisions, right? I mean, because all the characters, they all start off, whatever it is, you start off with skill at a certain point, right? It's not like, I can't even think of a good comparison. All the characters all start off pretty much with a base score that they can grow. Some skills they're going to focus more in, which are going to become more powerful than other people who focus in other skills, who are going to become more powerful in those skills and may have dabbled in those skills, but they're not as strong. So you get this flow of characters that are capable of doing whatever they need to do. So there is, I mean, I don't think there's an actual difference between characters in their skills. Or their skill points, right? I mean, it's no different than first level Dungeons and Dragons or first level anybody. They all kind of suck, and you got to figure out how to make them work with what you've created.
Fair enough. All right, Duality, I know you got some more questions for Levi. I'll let you ask the next questions.
Well, so
He was looking like he was falling asleep.
no. Well, so when I was going through the books, one of the things I really appreciated, and I wish more writers would do, was you included examples of different things, like the different types of players, the different types of game masters, and then you explained how that could be a good thing and a bad thing. What was the reasoning, and where did you come up with all that information you put in the books? Because I feel that that is some really important something really important that gets overlooked is talking about, the different styles of running games and how you could be that style in this game, and that's what it would look like. Like when you were talking about the adversarial game master or the beneficent one. I guess that's the
So,
question.
okay, so those concepts are things that I've experienced with other GMs. I've been a GM that's done that, and I just basically articulated it in a way of, hey, you can be an adversarial GM. Now, there's two types of those, right? There are the ones that are the asshole GMs or DMs that are just, it's me versus you as the players, and it's literally what they mean, right? But the other side is I am the GM DM of the world. I am against you, but I'm not coming against you personally, right? So you have those two different types. And then you have the beneficiary GMs, for all intents and purposes, that are doing whatever their players want to do all the time, and there is really there's no tension, there's no drama in the actual gameplay, right? And I think, and all those different concepts that I kind of put together are an accumulation of the many, many years that I've been as a GM, that I've written down as notes, or they're stored in the back of my small brain that I've just finally just put on paper. And it's taken some time to get it articulated correctly. I mean, anybody that's a GM for as long as I've been understands that you have got to be all of it all at once. And that's difficult for a lot of people. And I think becoming a GM it's not something you can rush. It's it's kind of like a fine liqueur or wine. It just takes time to get to a point where you are comfortable being a GM. There is, a book written by Gary Gygax. There's two of them. One is How to Be a Great Role Player, and the other one is How to Be a Great GM. Right after he left TSR, and they've got some. It's an enormous wealth from everybody out there for that can find those books and read them. There's an enormous wealth of how to be a good GM. I see a lot of people coming on TikToks and YouTube videos, and they're like, "Hey, here's a thing for being a GM," and I'm like, I think in the back of my head, I'm like, you're just now coming up with that concept, which means you're going down the road and you're sharing your knowledge, which is wonderful. But some of us have been doing that for a long time, right? We just have just been doing it. So I guess I just finally decided to write it down and put it in the book and in the Game Master's Guide and let you go. I mean, the first chapter is you as the GM. What are you? Who are you? What are players? What are these different things? I mean, and I've tried to give those who are willing to read it an opportunity to listen to my little bits of wisdom, I guess. And hopefully, whether they stick with Legends or they become the next Matt Mercer.
So one of the things I notice is that you do seem to put a lot of love and care into Kralis, and just knowing that you are such a history student of the game and like TTRPGs in general, and now you're kind of taking that and putting it out to be a teacher. It's wholesome, and I really love that. It seems like you care so much. And I guess my next question is, Kralis has been such a big part of your life recently and trying to get it done and get it to where it is now. What actually was the start? What sparked you sitting down and saying, you know, I'm just not happy with what's going on, or was it like, I think I can do this better? What drove you to create your own system and then to actually make it as expansive and in depth as it is? This is definitely a labor of love, and I want to hear the story of why. Why did you do this?
Because it was there and I decided to do it. No, seriously. Again, this goes back to 1985, 1986, second edition of Dungeons and Dragons, the rules, Thacos, all that stuff, right? Prior coming in the 1990s. I started building what would ultimately become Legends of Kralis way back then. 1991, 1992, 1993, that started to become even more into my concept of of the games, because I was tired of class systems. I even originally, if you were to go way back and follow it all the way back, it was actually a Dungeons and Dragons, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons second edition hack. I still had classes. I still had these kind of things, but I didn't like the way the dice worked. So I fuddled with the dice and I kept the classes. And then I started going, I don't like the classes. So we started moving away from the classes. And then I stuck with, the average tropes of the different species. And I had all these things. And it was literally, it was a second edition Dungeons and Dragons hack. And that's where it started from. But then I started thinking, I don't want to be that, and now I've got people saying, well, why didn't you just write a D20 system? It's so much easier. Everybody knows it. Because everybody's doing D20 systems, right? And over the last 4 years, with the advent of Critical Role, D&D has taken center stage. And that center stage, besides the fact that it's backed by a multi-billion-dollar company, is just the tip of the iceberg of what is actually beneath the surface of our total community. And Legends of Kralis is a small ice cube floating alongside it somewhere, right? But that's where it started. I mean, I can't dig them out because they're right here, but I've got the original books printed. They've got the comb, where you take it, you go to your local college, they print it out and then they stomp it and then they put it into the comb, and you've got the comb and it's all that. I've got those books originally still. I've got the players' books. I've got the game master's guides. I've got all of that starting from way back when. I've been using Word and all this other stuff. I've got all this information around me that's just stored on hard drives or disks of everything that I've ever written. And so it was literally, I'm prattling on, but it was literally a second edition D&D hack. That's really what it started out as. I was unsatisfied. And, I was just talking to one of my friends who's in England about this, and we were talking about, the Mercer effect and how this is all affecting. I'm like, it's much more than that, right? I mean, there's been so much lost in the history of how games are and how they've gotten here, that without that, people think that everything is, it's different, but it's really not. I mean, it's just being said in a different way, but it's not any different. I don't know if that makes any sense. Probably doesn't.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, the birth of it, like I said, the birth of it is just, it was originally a D&D second edition hack. That's where it started.
Were there other systems that were out at that time that you drew inspiration from? Like, I really like what this system's doing. I like what this one's doing, that you used to make that hack?
Yeah, so I started, like we were talking pre-show, I started with the white box in 1977, went to the red box in 1980, and then I cut my teeth on Rollmaster. Rollmaster, I loved it for the crunch value and the in-depth, but it's so table heavy that it's very hard to mitigate and how to get that. But back in 1980, 81, 82, we didn't have Twitch, Twitter, TikTok. We didn't have the things that have today that were those distractions. So Legends of Kralis is a combination of my love for Shadowrun, for Ice Games, which is the Iron Crown Entertainment, which is the Ringmaster, the original MERPs, D&D. It's got all it's all in there, and it's all my loves for all those different games that I grew up playing. RuneQuest is in there, Chaosium is in there, Call of Cthulhu's in there, and I started getting more and more and more and more in depth, I started realizing I really liked the D100 roll under system, but I wanted more. I liked what the World of Darkness was doing with their D10 pool and pips, right? And Star Wars, oh my God, Star Wars D6 D pools, right? And all those, right? So they had all these things, but they were just kind of the ones that kind of threw me over towards doing more successes was World of Darkness with their pips. The more 7, 8s, 9s, or 10s that you rolled, or 8, 9s, and 10s, depending on how the GM wanted to rule it, the more you were successful with that. And don't get me wrong, I like throwing a lot of D10s, but they bounce forever sometimes. And I just decided mathematically, how can we take what that does and put it into a single die roll? And that was the D100 2D10 system, right? It's where you have a score between 1 and 0, which is 100. And that's the mechanic behind it. That's where it all came from. And there's a lot of lore, and there is a lot of lore in all these books. In all 3 books, there's a lot of lore for the World of Kralis. I should have actually got it. There's actually a map that I did when I was 14 that's sitting in the garage on an 8.5. Not a 4 foot by 8 foot foam core board map that I did when I was 14. Put it up in my bedroom, and I drew on that for months. And that was the original World of Kralis.
When you were 14.
When I was 14. And my dad kept it, and I've kept it, and it's sitting in the garage right now.
Your dad kept it. That's awesome.
Well, because we were moving, and I was going to college, and all the other stuff. So he kept it. He thought it was a great piece, and now I look back and I'm like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, but that's where I started.
If it had been my parents, that would have never survived like the first week. My mom or dad would have thrown it away. Like 100%. Like they never. That's great that your dad thought it was awesome, and yeah,
he thought it was great.
Mine were never supportive over this hobby with me.
Oh, don't get me wrong. The 1980s Satanic Panic, going to private schools, I was voted most likely to go to hell first when I graduated. So that was 1988. And I'm like, great, thank you. I had people who saying, well, you need to do this differently. You need to do that. So, those of us who survived or lived through the Satanic Panic, we felt it in different parts of our lives, right? Told all kinds of bad things and stuff like that. But my dad and my mom were very much supportive of that because there were other things I could be doing, right? In the 80s, right? They're like, yeah, whatever you need to go this direction, don't go that direction,
Yeah.
And I only say this because it's kind of funny. I grew up in Colorado Springs, and in Manitou Springs, we owned a shop, and right up the street from where we owned our shop was the Church of Satan by Anton LaVey. So
did you play many games
there were
of Dungeons
other things
and
I could have been doing. No, unfortunately, no. I don't think I think that would have been the drawing line for my parents at that point. Just like, no, go.
Well, I mean, hey, you got to play when you can play, right? Back then, it was probably
But-
harder to find a group than it is today.
Actually, no, it wasn't actually. The
Oh.
group, the way things are working today with groups was not an issue I grew up with in the 80s and even early 90s. The FLGS was the most important thing in our community. It was what kept the community together. Everybody went there, and it may have been 3 or 4 different stores, but they all were together, and that's how we all met up. I mean, we had bulletin boards of, hey, do you want to play Dungeons and Dragons? Reach out to Rob. My phone number is blah, 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 blah. And that's how you did things. Nowadays, we are so disparate from each other, a la webcams, Discord, Twitch, YouTube, that's what everybody wants to go to. But then you also have the entire corporate entities that are slowly killing our local oneness within towns. Amazon, D&D now going completely PDF and digital and all those other things. It's starting to. Things aren't the same, that's for sure. But it was much easier to find a group back in the 1980s and early 90s than it is now. A lot easier.
I'll side with that. Like back in the 90s, I was able to get a group going practically within an afternoon by one trip to the local game store. Today, I mean, look at Changeling on our Discord server. How many messages has he put out just on that server trying to get a group of people, 4 people together to play one game? And he's been doing that on several.
I feel though like he's constraining himself, but we're gonna digress from that. So back to Kralis.
But the overall point is though, games today are much harder to play in groups than they were back in the 80s and 90s. It's much easier back then.
So. Legends of Kralis. We're going to go back to Legends right now. So there are a lot of TTRPGs out there. And one of the things that sets apart just another TTRPG from a game that's going to be memorable is a lot of them have something that other systems don't have. And I believe that the one for Legends of Kralis is the heroic luck system. Why don't you talk about that a little bit and explain that? Because that was the one thing when I played it with you that made it feel different, made it feel special outside of the class list and the infinite amount of knowledge that you put into it. The heroic luck system really set it apart for me. So just talk about
the heroic luck system is literally it's literally our built-in cheat system for players, right? It allows you, depending on how many points you want to spend. Heroic luck generally can only go up to 20 points total that you can use to spend to change the way the game is happening around you. A real simple one is if you roll really badly and you want to re-roll, you spend a heroic luck and you re-roll, but you have to take whatever that is. You really screw it up, you spend some heroic luck to ignore the critical failure effects of that. You die, spend 10 heroic luck once per campaign, and your character somehow survives the gnashing teeth of the Tyrannosaurus Rex as he's biting down on the car and begins to step on it, and you start to sink into the mud. Instead of drowning and all this other stuff, you survive. There are consequences for that, but you do. Now, heroic luck, while it's unique in I guess in that sense to Legends of Kralis, is not a unique mechanic. You have Savage Worlds with their mechanic of I can't think of it now. I've got pips and stuck in my head, but they have the ability beanies. There you go. You can turn in beanies to do different things, right? And you're only allowed so many beanies per game that you play, or game time that you have, and those things kind of reset. And I believe it's 3 base, and you can, the game master will ask you, hey, you want to re-roll that? That's a beanie. If you want to do this, it's a beanie, and that's unique to them because they have physical beanies, like that, and that you have to literally turn these over. Where Legends of Kralis says heroic luck is with you forever. You can't get past a certain point, otherwise it just becomes pointless, right? But it allows you to make rerolls. It allows you to have. You spend 5 heroic luck and you can add a bonus to your skill. You spend 9 heroic luck, you can add a larger bonus to your skill. You need to completely heal yourself of either your health or your fatigue points. You can spend a certain amount of heroic luck to get that to reaccomplish. in a standard face-to-face game where those rules are really tight, they become very precious to the players that have them. Currently in the Twitch game that I have that's on Fridays, one character has 89 heroic luck. But then again, whenever we get rated, they get 5 heroic luck. So we get rated a lot. So they've got a lot of heroic luck. But I also use them as bargaining chips. You want that effect to happen? Give me X number of heroic luck. Okay, boom, they do it. That effect works for you, right? It allows you to change dynamically the game as the players see fit within the GM's caveat universe. If that makes any sense. So it's not a free all be all. There are certain limitations that the GM will say, hey, listen, that doesn't make any mechanical sense, or that doesn't make sense to my world, or that doesn't make sense over here. But it allows the players to actually change the game for their benefit.
Okay. I like it.
I'm glad you like it.
It reminds me of the bennies from Savage Worlds, but also reminds me a bit of like Edge from Shadowrun. Being able to spend it and burn
Yes.
it.
Right. Yes. I had Savage Worlds in my head because I just played it the other day. So, but yeah, it does have Edge. It does. And you can burn them however you feel fit. Like I said prior to casts, I've killed 2 players already in the Friday night game. They've used their once per campaign. I survived the machinations of the world, but they can never do it again. The next time they're dead. They're done. One of them lost an arm. The other one lost something very vitally important to his character as a species. And they finally got that back. So, I mean, there's different things that can do it. So,
okay. I think like a follow-up question to that I have is, what would you say the types of games Kralis handles the best to run? There's a lot of talk like, the 3 different pillars and TTRPGs, but if you were to say, hey, Duality, you should run Kralis for this type of story, what type of story would that be?
I think that's a very difficult question for me to answer.
Okay.
Mostly because I would say it's good for all that you want to run.
Okay.
Right? It's built in. It's kind of like GURPS in that sense, where it's generic enough where you can run whatever you want, but it's got enough foundation where it's not so unwieldy that you can't run it for what have you. And that comes with a caveat. I don't think any game system, any TTRPG, whatever you want to call, whatever you want to do, handles the genre of horror well, period. Mostly because that requires everybody at the table to have a very specific buy-in. And if they don't have that buy-in, if they don't have that emotional buy-in for horror, it's not going to work. I don't care if it's kids on bikes. I don't care if it's oh my gosh. I can see it now. I just can't say the name. Any of those, right? If you don't have a specific buy-in from the players, you're not going to have a good horror game. Even Dread requires you to have a specific buy-in for horror, right? Otherwise, it just doesn't work. But I think Legends of Kralis does well in all the different genres and all the different stories, simply because it's generic enough that allows you to use it however you want, but it's also got rules specific enough that in case you run into something, you can look and say, oh, yes, this is what this does, right? Or this is what that does. It plays, even when we go to conventions, we allow the players who come to our tables to experience Legends of Kralis. You pick what genre we're going to play besides horror. You want to play science fiction? We can go full science fiction. You want to do a half breed? We can do a half breed. You want to do a full on fantasy? We can do a full on fantasy. You want to do, different things? You can. One of the ones that I'm actually writing now for conventions is literally a riff on Pandorium. The Dennis Quaid movie of them crashing on a new planet, and they think that they're still floating in space, and everybody's, the main characters are going insane. I'm finishing that up for a convention play in February. So that's going to be an option for people. I would say it's good for any game genre that you want to play. It will fulfill that. Are there games out there that could do better? Likely. You know, I mean, they all, and that's when they get really, really, really tight with the rules, right? And those kind of things. But I think you can play anything. Like we have one game which is basically you are going to the mining station in Aliens, and you have to rescue them without awaking the Fambray Queen Mother. We have one where you are doing a riff on the Princess Bride, where you have to rescue the Dread Pirate Roberts. We have one that you are literally going and exploring a riff on um, the ruins of the Moat House from Temple of Elemental Evil. You know, we have these different riffs just to show the capability of what Kralis can handle, and they all and it handles all of them well. Even when someone has a rifle that uses gunpowder in one game, or uses Dokul crystals to create energy in one of the other games for the power energies. So I think it would work for any of them. And in fact, I know it does because I've written those adventures to handle it, and everybody they pick it and they run with it and they love it. And we've had people come back at a game convention for 2 or 3 other games just to experience the other genres.
I can also kind of attest to that because in the one game I played with Hilarious here, it started out, it was gonna be kind of a swords and sorcery game until we commandeered a airship, and then it was gonna go full on like airship piracy type game. Sadly, that game fell apart, but it literally, just because of one little event, the entire focus of the group like shifted. We were like, okay, we're done with this. We're gonna go in this genre.
Really go that genre.
Even while playing, the genre shifted, and like the entire forward motion of the game changed, and it didn't feel disruptive or different at all. And it just happened to be we were on an airship, and we're like, hell, we're gonna steal this airship, and we got the airship. Even though Levi tried like hell to take it from us.
I did. I really tried. I tried very hard.
He did air sharks to try to take the ship down. He tried to get the government to take it from us. We had an airship.
And they were headed down piracy road.
We were full on. We were prepared. Then everybody just kind of got busy. That was also like when I had all kinds of hellish stuff going on in my life. So
yep.
I want to play Kralis again at some point. I'm so busy at the moment.
Well, it's not so much that it's your schedule versus my schedule. You're East Coast and I'm Mountain Range and Pacific Coast, so times are very difficult for you. But you are always welcome to come back, Steve.
I know. I just like you said, scheduling and all that. But anyway, that was a good question, Duality. Yeah. Next one. What you got?
Well, you want me to do another one?
Yeah, you do another one.
All right.
I'll do it more eventually.
What? Okay, so we'll stay just within, because you're talking about there's like a lot of lore, and I was reading through the books, and there is a ton of lore. I love the stories in between the chapters. What is your favorite bit of lore that you inserted into your game that we can see in any of the books that are available?
My favorite bit of lore. I think is actually I actually think it's in the player's guide, and it actually those stories are actually written backwards, right? You read what happens to the group, and then you at the very beginning, and then you read how they get to that position, and through that, the main antagonist is a character named by the name of Rache, and Rache is the avatar of the god of Magnata, who happens to be a non-gender specific entity of magic.
Okay.
So he's everywhere. Anything that you see, like when you see like a symbol, that's his actual symbol. It's in the player's guide. It's in the game master's guide. The only thing it's not in is the bestiary guide, because it's full of monsters. But that's it. I mean, he's an avatar of the god of Magnata, or entity of Magnata. I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah. Hey.
And so I'll expand on that. So even beyond that, though, there are references throughout the book in the player's guide that reference monsters and things that are in the bestiary guide, right? And in the bestiary guide, there are things that reference things that are in the actual core rules for the world of Kralis. There are settings within Legends of Kralis, the Game Master's Guide, that are set in the world that have actual connections to the overall lore, right? I mean, the entire Appendix A, which is the Game Master's Miscellany, has everything in it. It has void ships that are actually used. It has the Swift is a ship that I often use. It has characters. It has an entire town, the town of Cold Iron, that is where I set a lot of little tiny adventures that are in there that people can refer to. And in there, we have different things that are connected directly to the lore of Kralis. And you can actually go and read. I know that you guys got some of the PDFs, but there is a World Kralis wiki that is slowly being put together with all this stuff I have almost 1,200 pages of written information just on the lore and the campaign world of Kralis. Which is mostly for my edification. Be very difficult for most people to get through it.
I like that stuff, though. Oh, when the wiki's done, I need a link.
Well, it's there. It's up right now. You can actually go
active.
to it right now. It's active.
I thought I sent you that link. If
No,
not, I'll
it's
send
active.
it afterwards.
I don't have the wiki link. I got the PDFs.
Okay.
And that's it's continually growing. I haven't had a lot of time because I've been dealing with trying to figure out printing issues, and I need to get back to it. And I think my brain is just kind of like at a pause right now. It's like, okay, you need to not worry about things. Go play Assassin's Creed Mirage for a little while. Go do those kind of things. But the world itself is it's fundamentally can be changed by, let's say that duality. You decide that you want to start playing in Legends of Kralis and you want to play on the world of Kralis, and you do something and you're like, hey, I want to blow up the town of Cold Iron. If it's well written, that becomes canon lore and changes the wiki and everything like that. That on this date, this group brought down the destruction of the town of Cold Iron because of what have you, right? That is something that can be changed, and then people come back in. Oh, we're going to rebuild the town just a little bit further down. I'm trying to make it in such a way that it's not sacrosanct, right? It's not like Forgotten Realms. You can't mess with the Forgotten Realms very much. You can't, there's so much lore that they're afraid of changing something. I'm like, fuck my world up and let me know about it so I can make it, canon for you, right? I'll be glad to put that in there. And then on Friday night, they finally figured out that they're not on Kralis 001. They're on Kralis 696 of a multiverse universe of the Omniverse. So if their world is destroyed, there's a possibility they could probably go someplace else. So they now have this understanding that the Omniverse in which Kralis sits is not just a single world. It is a multiple universe.
Okay.
See, I told you, he put so much
Yeah.
love and effort and work into this setting and this system. Like, not just the rule set. It is like the world building is top tier as well. And like,
well, I wouldn't say it's top tier, but I appreciate the compliment.
It's really good. I mean,
it's depth. It's in depth. It's in depth. I'll tell you that. It's very in depth.
Yes.
But I wouldn't say it's top tier, but I appreciate your compliment.
Well, let me put it into contrast to the stuff we got coming out from the $1 billion corporation right now. What is it? 200 pages for the entire Spelljammer setting that told you and taught you nothing, and you've created this detailed, in-depth, beautiful, rich world with history and meaning, and you care about it, unlike these other companies that are just throwing shit out because we got to get a book out, we got to make money, we got to throw a book out, we got to get money. It's refreshing when someone has so much love and so much care for what they're producing.
He's already on the show, man. You don't gotta butter him up anymore. He's already here.
Yeah, I'm already here. I'm already lubed and ready to go.
Listen, no, you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, and I understand, and I appreciate your compliments. I really do. I mean,
I've even said, like, one of the things I don't like about the new products that come out for TTRPGs compared to the stuff from like the 80s and the 90s is that there is a loss of love in the product. Like in the 80s and 90s, you saw that people actually cared and they actually loved what they were doing. And it feels like a callback to that in Kralis, and I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you appreciating that.
But so you've created this world, you've created all this lore. What, if anything, in the creation of Kralis? Because I know in playtesting and development, there's always something that a person that's created something doesn't like or has thought this didn't work. What in Kralis, even at any point or even right now, do you look at your game and go, yeah, I don't like this, but I'm not sure what to do to fix it? Like, is there anything in your product that you're just like, I'm not 100% sure I like this?
Well, I cannot say that there's nothing in it that I don't like. There are things that have changed, even since you played it, that have been microscopically changed to make an overall effect. But you wouldn't even notice it, right? I look at it and go, that's a huge jarring experience. Oh my gosh, I have to redo that, right? And things like that, which is why on the website there is a continuing, ongoing change log, right? That will be implemented into a new, and I don't even know if it's called revisions or additions, but those changes will be implemented into the next printing, which you can get from DriveThruRPG. You will never know the difference. Other people can download the PDF for free or refer to the website and continue to add the rules. And there's some of them are microscopic, some of them are full on changing. And perfect example. I had the party itself, their 21st, 22nd rank, and I'm throwing a small legion of demons at them. And one of the major demons, they literally stun lock it. It can't do. And if you remember your actions, Dragon, you have your full action, which is your attacking and your spellcraft and all that other stuff. Then you have your move. Then you have a simple. Then you have two basics. They stun locked it to the only thing it could do was move, and even then when it moved, it couldn't move very far in our real realm. So it's like I'm out, and it plane shifted, it planar traveled back to its original plane because it couldn't do anything. They weren't killing it, it just couldn't do anything. It couldn't attack them because it was stunned, it was staggered. And I'm like, and then I looked at it, I said, well, if I do that to the players, they're gonna freak out. So I went back through and I actually added that at the beginning of every turn, on your turn, if you are stunned, staggered, or dazed, or any of the other things, you get a chance to break out of it. But based off of whatever it was, whether it's a high TS or low TS, you get to do that, because otherwise, could you imagine if I stun locked the entire party and they were surrounded by their enemies? They wouldn't survive.
Oh no, yeah. That'd be
right?
The end of it.
And that's one of the things I always look at is when I write something, how would, like I write something for the players, then I turn around and look at it and go, how would an enemy use this? And if the enemy can do this to them and the negative consequence of that happening is larger than what is required or should be, it needs to adjust to allow the players to have their agency. Otherwise, they're done. And it's no longer any fun. It's just like, I am dead, right? And so there have been those kind of changes. I don't dislike it. It's really fun to watch So we have a spell that's called it's a standard trope. Identify. It allows you to identify a magic item. It takes 8 hours to do and all this other stuff. One of the players from the Friday night game does this. He has the ability to duplicate himself up to 8 times. He then casts Identify into these stones. After he's done that, he then hands them to his duplicates. They all cast Identify. So in 8 hours, he can identify 8 items in one sitting. And so he will do that. So, okay, so we're flying over this line. Okay, so I'm going to identify these items. And he goes through the whole process. And he creates clones of himself, a la Naruto, who then has the ability to identify a single magical item. And he does it, and I'm like, it's so cool. I don't want to stop it. But it's all rules as written. He's using the rules as they were written, and it's fantastic. I love it. The other night, 2 weeks ago, they were supposed to there was a trap that I'd set, and I'm thinking, okay, I've got him now. I'm going to really punish him for this. And the priest goes, we haven't used a spell in a while, but I'm going to want to locate that in front of me because it's within my range. I'm like, you cheated. And he located it. There were 13 spears, right? They were looking for an artifact, and one of them was one of the spears. They were all kind of like ghostly, transparent, translucent. They were kind of fading out, and the other ones were trying to unlock that part of the trap so they could do that. And the other part of the trap that was actually occurring was the defender came down, which is basically I'll say a lich, so you have a reference of what this entity can do, came down, and they're like, okay, so you have to pick up one of these spears. And he's like, I'm going to locate which one's the real one. And I'm like, and I thought about it. I was like, I could just say that because it's a legendary artifact that it can't work, but it was just so cool because I've never had the opportunity to use locate. I just let it go through, and he cheated.
He cheated. Or
he matrixed
your own system against you. He
matrixed the system. He matrixed the system. He changed the rules, which was good. I loved it. It was fantastic, and it saved them from dying, which was good.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, all right. Any follow-ups to that duality?
I do not have a follow-up for that.
Beautiful. So, the decision to go with 3 books. A lot of systems today are going to the putting everything in one book. And it seems like going to 3 books isn't as popular. Was that a conscious decision, or is that just because there's so much you had to do it? Because it looks like that might be the case.
Well, originally, their Legends of Kralis was just simply one book. It was a game master's guide and a player's guide put together. But that itself was just under 500 pages, right? I mean, it was a thick volume. And here's the kicker: people were complaining that it was too thick of a volume and it should be 2 separate books.
Huh?
So I changed it, and now people are going, well, it should all be one book. Well, there's a lot of information, right? I mean, I'm just going to show this. These are the hardback versions, and the paper. It's the reason why they're so thick is the paper went from 50 pound to 75 pound, which gives it a thicker paper. This is all 3 books hardback.
Yeesh!
Right?
That's going to be awesome.
This is the entire system right here. Comparatively, let me grab this one up here. Prior to them actually changing the paperweight, this was the original player's guide. I don't have a non-papered, but it's thinner, right? Comparatively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? It's still the same book. It's just the paper's thicker.
I cannot wait till I get my copies. Cannot wait.
Well, unfortunately, I was telling Duality prior to you got here, there was a huge issue with the cutting of some of these things, and it only works in the hardbacks. The softbacks for some reason don't have that same issue, but I corrected it, so they're all good all the way through. You're going to be getting you'll be getting all 3 books, and Duality you'll be getting all 3 books as well, hardbacks from me. So
well, thank you.
As soon as they're able to, I will punch them out to you guys. I want you to play my game. That's what it is.
Well,
I want people to play my game, and when we go to, I'm happy that people, and I thank them. I'm like, thank you for playing my game. Did you enjoy it? Yes. Thank you so much. Even the last convention, we gave out 70 of the players guides for free. I'm like, here, play my game. Here, play my game. You playing on the table? Everybody gets one game. You get a player's guide. At the convention, they actually got their character card and their character sheet of their character and a free game player's guide to play the game. I want you to play my game, please, because I think it's cool.
I want to play your game.
And I think you'll like it too.
I want to play.
So let's get back to some of the mechanics and some of the intricacies of the game. One of the things that threw me off a little bit when we were playing, and it took me a minute to grasp it even through playing, was the ranking system, in the fact that you basically are renting or buying your product or buying your level up on loan, and then you work that down to 0 and then you rank up again. Am I describing that correctly?
That was perfectly described.
Yeah, you aren't leveling up. You are paying off your debt. Once your debt's to 0, you spend all your budget again.
You go get another loan. You go get another loan and repay that back. Yeah, that's essentially what it is. I mean, it's not a D&D level up or any other leveling up. Any system that has a level up system, right? They have from first rank to second rank, it costs X amount of experience points across the board. With Legends of Kralis, you have your species merit, you have your ability merit, you have your rank merit, and those are all going to change. The rank merit, the species merit will never change. Your ability merit will change based off of what abilities you got. So you are setting your own personal experience table. It's not going to be the same for everybody. Somebody may, on first rank, may take a 2,000 merit point ability plus their species ability. So now they're sitting at 3,400 merit points that they need to get, that they can go up. And I know, Steve, you like Milestone. We've had this discussion before. We could sit there. We can talk. I love experience. The reason why is because it feels like I'm actually growing instead of, okay, we reached the milestone. I wasn't around for 6 games. That's okay. I get to level up now.
I like Milestone when it comes to most games, but in Kralis, it makes sense why there's merit, right?
Right.
In Kralis, I'm picking my abilities. It's not like I'm earning experience and then I get this set, like you said, I can pick off of a menu what I want instead of going and being served. Okay, this is what you have now. Then our next course is this. Then our next course is this. Where Kralis seems like a buffet. I can go, okay,
try some of column A and all column B.
I want this. I want this. I want this. Okay, but now I have to pay for this at the end. So before I can go get more, I have to pay this off. And it feels dynamically different than just I gain experience. Oh, I'm a level 2 fighter. Oh, I'm a level 3 fighter. Where this, it's more like, okay, I picked what I wanted. Now I'm paying that off. Now that I've paid that off, I get to go pick more shit and be.
Or you can choose not to do that, right? Which gives you the whole dynamic of Superman versus Batman. Right? Superman is extremely powerful. He's got all these kind of things. But hands down, Batman is the more skilled individual who's got a lot more skill, not as many abilities, but he can take down Superman. Right?
Yeah. So
you can become Superman if you like, or you can become Batman and just rank your skills up. And that's the difference here. And then, there's always there's this argument about, people are getting experience from just fighting monsters. Well, that's true for a lot of game systems. Don't let anybody fool you. That's the truth for a lot of game systems. I've included a number of other ways to do it. There's the milestone method you can do. You can do a standard merit point giveaway where everybody just automatically gets 2,000 merit points per rank. You can sit down and you can, if you're one of those individuals that likes to meticulously figure out how much merit they got, the monsters guide or the bestiaries guide has got what a standard monster might be for a particular the merit points for it. Then there's also ad hoc. Did the players achieve their goal? Did they stick to their philosophy? Did they stick to their motives, their aspects? Did they make the GM laugh? Did they bring the GM snacks? That's very important, and that actually gets you 1,000 merit points if you bring me snacks.
How does
right?
that work for
That's in the game. You can always what is it? Uber Eats Me.
I was gonna say if I DoorDash,
I've actually had my players. Yeah, I'll give you 1,000 merit points right there. DoorDash, 1,000 merit points. Right, but I mean that's literally in the book, right? I mean that's right off of chapter 2. In chapter, now you've got me talking, Steve. You shouldn't have done that.
No, that's
chapter
what I
2.
Wanted.
You can get merit for just about everything that you need based off of what you want. So there's an entire list called ad hoc merit point list. You have a clever idea that can be anywhere from 50 to 500. You solved a difficult problem, which has we have target successes, right? Which would be like a difficulty challenge in D&D. It was 6 to 10 successes. That's plus 200 merit points. Talked your way out of a combat scenario. That's anywhere from 100 to 1,000 merit points. How did tell me about how the session impacted the character growth? That could be worth up to 500. Role playing that made other players laugh. Role playing that is inspiring, and literally bringing snacks for the GM and players. Plus 10 to 1,000 merit points. It's right here. It's written right here. Story rewards. So you can if you want to go into a dungeon crawl, it's there for you to be able to do that. If you want to do experience points or merit points in a different way, that's there too. It just depends on what you want to do. The tools are there. You've got your toolbox. You're a Havoc guy. You know what that means.
So I guess since we're talking about the character ranks and all that,
sure.
I know that one of the things that to me seemed a little different is don't you even have to buy more health? So
yes. Well, you don't have to buy more health. So when you go to rank, right? I don't mean to interrupt you. When you go to rank, you have what's called ranking bonuses. You can choose you get one for free, right? You can either give yourself additional health or additional fatigue, or you can increase your skill, increase the number of skills you have, get rid of some insanity, all those kind of things. And those are called ranking bonuses. And they cost merit after the first one free. But yes, you don't rank every rank and gain health. You have to decide that's what you want. Otherwise, you're stuck with it.
Which I think is a unique thing. Like I said,
I like that.
I'm not like I said, I like milestone in most other systems, but it doesn't feel like it would work here. And it just feels like the system here is unique enough and different enough that I don't have to care about milestone.
Well, and here's the thing. The tracking of the merit points isn't on the GM. It's on the players. They have to track their own merit. You hand out the merit. You're like, okay, guys, great session. Tonight you all did this. These monsters give you, there's 7 of them. They're all about, I'm just going to round him. They're all 500. So that's 3,500 merit points. So that's between all of you, that's 1,200 merit points you each get. Okay, great. And they write it down and you're done. You don't have to track it. It's on them. They track it because once you reach the total amount of your loan, it resets to 0 and you start over if you want.
I also, I'm going to talk back to my character, Nezra. I like that a lot of the abilities that you have can also create story and role play beats. Like Nezra, when I forget. I changed their gender every day, so it was fuck whatever. Nezra would take the ability that they got, like a demon that was their patron,
Demonic
that gave
tutor.
them
Demonic tutor.
demonic tutor, and it actually fed into the narrative because a couple sessions later, you had that demonic tutor show up talking to me, and it created this element. And I like that there's attributes and abilities and things like that that create that type of a story beat atmosphere. It's not just a bunch of stuff there. You can use it that way, but it can also create this like story beat. Like if the players really want to, hey, there's this cool ability, let's role play me learning from someone how I got that ability or how that became a power I use. And it's such a unique system that you can do that kind of stuff as well as the traditional just here, hey, you leveled up, you ranked up, pick your stuff, let's get going. But you can do this story element as well. I appreciate that.
Well, that was definitely something that the more we got into it, the more we tightened up the rules. Those actually kind of things actually work. Like even learning skills, right? We had one individual actually learn lore architecture because in the last time they were at a place where I called for lore architecture, nobody had it. So when they get back to the city, he finds somebody, hey, can you teach me lore architecture? I need to know more about this. And it was never used again. But he went and he learned it because they never had another spot where they actually needed it. But every time he'd walk into a place, he goes, I'm going to lore architecture this place. I want to know how it was built. I want to know, is there anything? I'm like, I would have to pull something. He forces me as a GM then to pull something out of my ass that has nothing to do with the campaign, but give him, the ability to feel that he's contributing to his character that way. But yeah, it allows you to build your own beats, both as an individual character and then also overall as a party, right? Because party members can train each other on skills if they have it at a certain rank or a certain level, right? The abilities themselves, a lot of them are pseudo magical, right? So they just kind of like you pick one and you can go with it. And it really depends on how much narrativeness you want to get involved in, right? I think Legends hits all three of those specific gaming concepts: the gaming, the narrative, and the simulationists, right? That it hits all three well enough that it balances out.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think with like all the maps you've included in the books as well, you could theoretically run a really cool exploration game as well as a social game as well as a combat game. So Kralis is definitely a good overall whatever you want to do system.
Well, I think, again, I'm biased, right? So I think it is, and one of the things I don't know if you're going to touch this, so I'm going to touch it, is the number of species, right? We're a classless system, so we had to put everything into our species, right? You choose a species, you choose your skills and your abilities, and then you go. That's literally the way we describe the system. You pick a species, you pick your abilities, your skills, and you go. The species themselves have changed and evolved since they originally were created, and they become more dynamic, right? You have everything from the Assyrians, which are the four-armed individuals who were at one point, and this is a very sensitive topic, a slave species. They were a slave species, but they revolted and they won all this back. But they're very, very weary of other people. But at the same time, they don't have like normal, like for example, in this, the detail of this, they don't have live births the way that you would think regular species do. The female produces an egg, and that egg is then given to the community, and from that comes a new series. Right? There are egg mothers that literally watch over the hatch, on the unhatched eggs. Right? That's the Assyrians. Then you have the Elwyn. Then you have the Balin, which are they're on their fifth generation of lives, meaning that they have followed a mythological journey of their species has been wiped out 5 other times, and they've always come back in a new world, a new vision. Then you've got the hold on, the Kova. The Kova are actually related to the Habatu and the Rakas. They are all one. They were all one species at one time, long ago, prior to being touched by ancient chaos, and then they split into these 3 groups. So they're all, one is the technological portion of their personality, one is the warring personality, and one is a combination of the 2. Then you have the Fenkanor, which are giant humanoids. They were I originally once called them furbogs, but I was getting so much flack for that because D&D started giving furbogs, and everybody's like, well, this is what they look like. I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's not that. So I completely changed the name. And I based it off their language.
What was the species that you changed completely because I said, oh, those are just gnomes?
Habatu.
Yeah. Yeah,
well, and
he
the thing
had
is,
to completely rewrite a species because I'm like, oh, those are just gnomes. And he's like, no, they're not.
No, they're not. They're not. And so I completely rewrote them, right? But I also did that with a lot of the weapons, right? The Imperial swords, the Unzunkels, the Bravazaro swords. Those were all typical standard swords. And do you know how much flack I got from people who are these fanboy weapons who just like, well, that's not how a longsword works. You can't name it a longsword. All right, fuck you. I'm changing the name. Now tell me how it's supposed to work. Please. It's no longer the same weapon. Well, no, it's not, So I've done that before. So yeah, so there's the furbog, the Fenkanor. Then there's the Habatu. There's the Jakara, which by the way are one of my favorite species because it's a nod to the Thundercats. Then you have the Canis, which is another nod to the Thundercats.
I just want to say
There's
I'm
humans,
so thankful that you put in a canine species. So many games go with the cats and the rodents, and they always leave out the dogs. So thank you.
Right. I appreciate that. There's the Bahul, which are not minotaurs. They are a bull species. They are not a minotaur. There is a monster called the Minotaur, which are actually a chaotic form of Bahul that are born to the Bahul and are basically they're a demonic mutation that's been impregnated into. So the Bahul are completely different. And then there's 3 different species of Bahul. Humans are unique. Nobody, everybody's like, I don't want to play humans. Steve hates humans.
I don't hate them, but I usually won't play them.
Well, take a look at the Kralis humans. They are unique. They are the world changers when they want to be, right? That's the way I designed them. I wanted people to play humans. There's the Manics, which are the mouse people. But then there's also inside the Bestiary Guide, the Saurics, which are the rats. So you can play them. You can play them off of each other. One hates the other one because one tortures the other one with magic, and so the entire species. All The Secret of Nim. Right?
Such a good movie.
That did that. That's a great movie.
Man, you get
Rakas,
references from everything, don't you?
Right, I do. Rakas are the second version, are the Habatu and the Kova and the Rakas are all related. The Rakas are they're not orc species, mostly because they are a combination of sapien, because they don't have a normal foot. They have a hand-like foot, right? So they're not, but they are an aggressive portion of it. They're an altered species. Then there's the Siliph. Now the Siliph are unique, as in they are both. They can be any sex. They can be any sex they want. They can physically change to male or female on the whim as they desire. They are really literally a portion of my wife's request to have a species that could be LGBTQI friendly. So they are. They are. You can play them as a male. You can play them as a female. You can play them as androgynous. You can play them however they want. Mechanically, the rules are set there for that. Then there's the Taja Hu.
Siliph, right?
The Siliph, right?
Yeah, that's what my character Nezra was, and why I said
right.
like I never made a defined gender.
You never defined their gender. So they were just a they them.
And it wasn't even that. Like there were days that Nezra was a guy. There were days that Nezra was a girl. It depended on my mood at the time and what I felt like saying. So I like that there is that built in. So I appreciate that as well, as I feel like that is inclusive, but I'm not a person that should say that because I'm straight, but I think it is.
Well, I think it's important. We as game designers try to be as inclusive in everything that we possibly can. I've felt that way for a long time. Then there's the Taja Hu, which are not space elves. Oh, going back to the Kova. The Kova are everybody goes they're dwarven Klingons. I can't disagree because they they've got a ridged forehead, and why this is important is because it's funny. One of the creators or the co-designers of Kralis actually was playing a Kova. They had gotten captured and they didn't have their weapons. He literally cast spiritual weapon on his forehead, which by the way can be used as a weapon and use it as a weapon to help them escape where they were at. He was literally headbutting people and spiritually and cast spiritual weapon on his forehead. And was just doing. Yeah, it was great. He was the only one who had a weapon. Everybody else was like, I don't got anything. I got my head. Let's go. Then you have the Taja Hu, which are funny because they are actually my nod to Romulans. Because, I'm a Star Trek, Star Wars fan. I worship at both churches. And then you have the trolls. And the trolls are not your standard like D&D troll. They are more akin to the trolls of the 10th Kingdom. God. If you've ever seen that I know you hate. I've seen your TikToks on that, and you've gotten some serious hate. But they are more along the lines of trolls that live underneath the bridges concept, right? And that's the 15 base species. And then on the website and in the bestiary guide, there's an additional 15 species you can play. So I've tried to give everybody a broad width of as much as I can.
So the decision that I admire about your species is that you made them species. And I know that it is such a negative in the TTRPG space right now that species and race is such a divisive thing. But I appreciate that Kralis has dug their feet in the ground and said, no, these aren't just different types of humans that look different. They are legitimately different species with their own lore, their own histories, their own backgrounds. Like you said, the four-armed people, they lay eggs and then they go to the egg mother, the Osiris. They go to the egg mother and that's how the birthing process for them works. A human and them are not compatible because they're not the same. And I appreciate that. And I know that's a divisive thing within the community right now.
Is that still going on within the community? Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I thought that was dead and buried.
No.
No, it's still alive and bad.
Yeah, I got some conversations for my view that ability score adjustments in and of themselves were not the problem. It was the lore that people attached to it. And even having that opinion about 2 months ago was not a very good thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Him and VJ Harris, person I very much respect, got really into it.
That was a long time ago. That was a long time.
So the reason why I chose species over race was because of the fact that they are I view them as completely different entities. Completely different. They are not capable. There's not even half species within Kralis. There's no like halflings or half dwarves or half elves or half orcs. They do not exist. They are incapable of being mated in that sense. That does not mean that that a Taja Hu and a troll can't be in love with each other. They can just never produce. Right. And even in the player's guide, right off the bat, page, I think it's, I want to say 19. Yeah, 19. I give you 3 things here. We have one of the boxes is the species features, and then it literally goes love among the species. Because I wanted to make sure that when people come to this game, they understand that this is how I, as the creator, view it. And then play how you see yourself, right? I've written that there because I want people to understand how I view you should. I don't want to say how you should play the game, that you have the freedom to do and play the game as you see yourself fit, right? Because they are not the same species. They are, I mean, if you go to page 20 of your guys' PDF, you'll see that the species themselves are not physically capable of mating.
Yeah.
So
They're
weird
just
that
not.
has
I mean,
to come up
there's
in
black,
games.
right? But I specifically went down that road to make sure that no, a species is different than race, and species are different, right? Race, we're all one human race. Just the color of our skin is what's different. We all bleed the same color. Period.
Yeah.
Right.
See,
the only other argument people could have is Spock was half human and half Vulcan. Okay, whatever.
Well,
that's a straw man argument. Move on.
Well, that's Star Trek. That's not Kralis.
Well, but that's what I'm saying, though. But everybody pulls from these different tropes, right? That's the problem. Everybody pulls from these tropes, and then they get entrenched in their own conception of what those tropes mean to them, and they stand their grounds, and those hills are the ones that they're going to die on. That's why, very specifically, they are all different species, and I can't remember where I read it. It was back in the 80s. There was an RPG, not an RPG, like a bulletin board on AOL where people were talking about the difference between species and race. And I had to agree. Species are different entities. Race is a common denominator or numerator amongst that species.
Yeah.
And I agree. I don't understand why it's so contentious anymore. But yeah, back to my original thing. I appreciate that Kralis has dug their feet there, and I
I've dug my
love
feet.
that you've
I'm not moving.
gone at it. Yeah, and I appreciate that. So, out of all of your species, you mentioned that some are obvious nods to the Thundercats, to the Secret of Nim, things like that. I also love that Mum-Ra is one of your villains, even though you don't call him Mum-Ra.
No, he's just an ancient. He's an ancient mummy. That's all he is. And the artist is like, "So what are we going to do? How do you want to do this?" I'm like, "Dude, do something." And he was actually the guy who had actually done some of the concept art for the Jakar and the Canis, and his mind was just stuck on the Thundercats. And here comes Mum-Ra. I'm like,
It is.
I love it. We're running with it.
I have that shirt, Mum-Ra. That's Mum-Ra. Let's not play any Ra.
Yeah,
but I love
it.
Which of the species did you have the most fun writing? Like, which of them, when you were writing them, it hit on all cylinders, and you're like, "This is going to be awesome. I'm love that I included them."
Can I choose 2? Can I choose 2? Will you give me 2?
I'll give you 2.
And they're actually opposite sides of things. One was the Mannix. I love the concept of just mice, and I love the Secret of Nim. I really do. It's one of my all-time favorite animes that was not Disney, right? And the Trolls. I like the Trolls because I based them off of a very specific real world cultural concept, and I loved and it just flowed for me because I've got good friends that are part of that cultural concept, that culture, and I kept bouncing these questions, and they loved it, right? Those are probably my two ones that were the most fun to write. The Balian are a nod to my own heritage here as a Native American. I'm a little removed, but I'm still got blood of the Lakota Sioux. So that was very important for me to write that the way I wrote that. But those were just fun. because the way when I wrote them, even before I wrote the finished up writing the Fin Canor, I always envisioned the Gray Mouser and I can't say his name now. In that kind of sense, where the Mannix rode on the shoulders, holding onto the horn of the troll.
Okay. Neat. You look like you've got thoughts, Duality.
Nope. I'm good right now. I got my last question. I came up with my last question that I wanted to ask. I'm going to hold on to it.
Okay. So also in Kralis, or Levi, you have all these different elements and these different things. Like, it can go from, like we said, we can hit every type of genre. What really made you decide that you wanted to go so in depth? Like, you've added airships, you have rules for strongholds, you have rules for minions. I believe you have rules for mass combat too, or at least
Well, they're very basic rules. They're very basic. They're nothing like, to say, 40K or any of that. They're basic rules on how to do mass combat.
Yeah, but like, you've included so much. Like, what was the thought there? Like, what made you decide, okay, I'm going to keep adding all of this stuff so that it encapsulates everything? Because most game systems and designers try to like pick one thing and then they focus, and you've kind of made the buffet of what you can do.
Because I think these books represent who I am at a core. I like the flexibility. I like the ability to do everything in one region and not be so like focused in just one spot. Because when you become focused in one spot, it gets hard to break away from that spot. And I think honestly, Kralis is my magnum opus, I guess. Right? I will never create another game system. I will only add to the essence of what Legends of Kralis is. Right? But with that said, we're working on a D20 system for Legends of Kralis. It's not a 2D20 system. It's just a D20 system. It is not 5e compatible, but we're breaking it down to where you can play a D20 dice at the same table with 2D10. And two people can, and the reason why we're doing that is to help people who struggle with mathematics. And I'm not trying to be rude about that.
So you're making it for people like me.
Because I love you, Steve.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a huge fan of the D100 roll under system, and I've never been. But with Kralis, it didn't seem. I don't know how to put it. It didn't feel like any of the other D100 roll under systems I've played.
Interesting.
Like this one, it didn't seem like there was as much fiddly, nitpicky math in Kralis as other ones. And I think with the heroic luck, it felt different. I don't know how to explain it, but with Kralis, I wasn't as bothered by the D100 roll under as I have been in other systems that I've played. So I don't know if that's the way you wrote it, if it made more sense, if it was clearer in its definition of how it did things, or whether you were just better at explaining it. But definitely it felt not as bothersome.
Well, and that's true until you reach a certain rank, right? Once you get to rank 20, it doesn't slow down. It's just now you've got so many different options that you can add in that you have to be aware of what you're doing, right? But it still flows, right? Once you got that number, you're done, right? Once you understand the basic mechanical math behind it, it's relatively easy. But we do have a lot of family members that are mathematically challenged for various reasons. And while they loved playing Legends of Kralis, sometimes for them, the larger number made it more difficult for them. But when we broke it down to just referring to the two first numbers and using it either as a count up method or subtracting the tens from the tens, they got it. And that started making us think, well, once we get the D100 system where we need it, let's do a D20 system where it's the same exact mechanic, just in smaller numbers. And I started looking into that, and I think a lot of people, maybe some people have, I don't know. There is no mentally challenging difference between addition or subtraction. People say subtraction is harder. Between addition and subtraction, so long as it's in a single digit. Once it gets above 2 digits, it becomes more difficult. And once you get to 3 digits, it becomes really difficult for some people. But if you can keep it within a single digit, there is no difference between addition and subtraction for people. There just isn't. There may be the concept of it, right? That's how I view it. But the numerous papers that I've come across and have read from psychologists and mathematicians, there's no difference. So that's why once we've got this down and we're done, which we're at, we've decided to start going through and changing it to where you can use a D20 at the same table, Steve, as someone who's rolling 2D10 and come out with the same results. Just one's easier math for somebody, while other people might like it. And the D100 system, and people are like, so why don't you just write a D100 system? I like the granularity concept of a D100 system. Instead of basing everything off of like fives, you get more movement when it's 10, right? For every 10 you get below your score, you get a success. And that could be as much as 1 point between a success and 2 successes, right? In your scores and your dice rolls, right? The granularity in the D100 system allows for a lot more movement narratively, I think, and a lot more, what's the word? This is why my brain is small. It's called ADHD. The granularity of the D100 system allows for an opportunity for better narratively and better descriptions on things that happen, right? There's more movement. And some people, my son included, Wesley's wife and his 2 daughters, my wife included, that movement is too much for them. Okay. If that makes sense, right? In figuring out numbers. They're not mathematically badly challenged. It's just the concept is different for them. So we want to write the system in such a way that allows them to play the game and play our game at the same time with people who want to roll the 2D10.
Okay. Yeah. I think we've covered most duality. Why don't you ask that last question you want, and then we're.
Why do I feel like I'm like on a surprise test now? Like,
No. So my last question is, just because I could definitely see the love of running this game. What is a character concept that you have desperately wanted to have at your table, but somebody has not brought to be played yet?
Oh, That's a good question.
That's a really good question.
That's a good question.
You stumped him. I'm proud of you, Duality. You stumped him. That's hard to do, and you got him.
Got it. Jedi.
Okay.
We have in the ability within the player's guide for you to create a Jedi Knight based off of specific abilities. I have one player that's they kind of moved that way, but then they altered course and went a different direction. But deciding to full on play a nod to Star Wars Jedi, whether it's Sith or Jedi, no one has come to me and said I want to play this concept. You have the capability. We have energy. We have our own lightsabers. I can't say it, can't write it because it's copywritten and it's trademarked. But
you have psionic beam swords.
Yeah, that's right. We have psionic beam swords. That is one of the things that no one's come to my table and said I want to play a Jedi. Flat out. And I would love for someone to say I want to play a Jedi because I can help you build that and push you in such a way that you will feel like you are within the Star Wars universe playing a Jedi based off of any of the species that we have. I promise you.
I feel like the reason no one would ever ask that is because you don't think of Jedi unless you're thinking about Star Wars. At least I don't. Like, I've never went into another system like, I want to play a Jedi.
So, you know what's funny?
Because you can't.
Hearing that, like, I have an idea for a character. It's like Jedi, but add some illusion magic to the mix.
You can do that.
Yeah. That sounds like it'd be a hell of a lot.
Kralis, you can do that easily.
Yeah. Go Jedi.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you can actually do that. And I've avoided doing anything with psionics for a very long time because it can get too complex. And then you have all these different things. What I finally did is I broke down because someone requested it. I have to fix the powers, but we have what's called the psychic font. And if you're used to the ability tier section of Legends of Kralis, it fits perfectly. There are 12 abilities that allow you to become Jean Grey from X-Men, if that's where you choose to go with it. Or any of the psychic capable entities of the MCU.
Okay.
I love the fact that you can play anything in Kralis, and that is not hyperbole. Like, so many systems tout you can play whatever you want, and there are too many limitations. Like, you can't just play anything you want. In Kralis, if you have a concept, like if I can play Tigger, you can play anything you want.
And you can actually, there's a species called Uruskai, which are our bear species. So there's Winnie the Pooh. You've got Tigger, the tiger. Then you've got, we have a species called the Gantu, which are literally kangaroo people, but they're not built like kangaroos, but they have large tails and large hind legs like a kangaroo. So you got Roo there. You can play, the only thing I don't think you can actually play because I've never really written it up is a horse species. But you can play a centaur. That works.
Yeah.
I smell a
right?
honey heist.
We have the. You could do a honey heist. You could also play the entire horror movie of that came out with
Blood and Honey.
Blood and Honey.
Movie. Yeah, Blood and Honey. I'm like, oh, yeah, you can do that, right? So you could do that. I mean, even the cover of the player's guide shows that you can play anything that you want. You can play a martial arts tigress individual whose best friend is a four-armed serious void-loving pirate, right? You can play those concepts. the only limitation, and I'll say this flat out, the only limitation for any of that rests in the GM's capability.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, that's about it. But
that was a good question.
Yeah.
No one's ever come to my table and said, I want to play Jedi. That would be so cool.
Well, when Duality and I start a game with you at some point in the future, he's going to play a Jedi.
Like I said, I'll play a Jedi if I can just mix a little bit of illusion magic in there to go with it.
So here's how this happens. You come, you pick a species. I would suggest the Tajahu. Then you go and you pick right off the bat. The first ability you're going to pick is called Arcane Touch, which allows you to use your spellcraft to be able to start casting illusionary magic. You then take Kujurakai focuses and Injara and abilities from Injara. Those three combinations gives you by third rank your Jedi that can use illusions and do everything that most Jedis can do. For a fledgling Jedi, I mean,
Nice.
Come on, we got to get some growth here.
Oh yeah, no, nice. All right, put a pin in that because that is the character I will go with in that game.
Shit. So we were talking, Duality and I, about potentially doing like a once a month one shot on the Ronin's Den channel. Would you be interested in running a Legends of Kralis one shot for us and maybe 2 other people?
I'll run you right through one of our convention games.
All right.
Awesome.
I will give you. It won't be a full blown character. It will be a convention character. They will be anywhere from 1st to 3rd rank, and I will run you through any genre you want, based off of the choices that we have. I could run any genre.
We will definitely put that on the schedule and try to get a couple more people.
Let me know. I'll run you through a one shot anytime.
Beautiful.
Nice.
I don't have anything else for Hilarious. Do you have anything else, Duality?
No, I don't. Except for our standard ending question when we have a guest on, which is where can we find your stuff? Do you have anything upcoming that you'd like to share on the way out?
So, like I said, we had to go through a kind of like, I don't want to say a redesign, but a recalculation of the pages because of miscuts on Drive-Thru RPG side. But they should be up for print, so you can get them as softback with the PDF, hardback with the PDF, all 3 books. All 3 books will cost you I think with the new prices coming out, will cost you about the same as one of your Dungeons and Dragons books. And that's the hardbacks. They are each $24.99. You can get the softbacks for $15.99, and if you just want the PDFs, they're $5. And the people are like, so why don't you charge more? I don't want to charge more because I want people to play my game. I just want to kind of make money back to pay back for all the art that I've purchased over the years, which is a lot.
Yeah,
that's
you have a lot of beautiful art in your books.
There's some really nice
that was the most expensive part. But all I want is people to come play my game. You'll either like it or you'll come to respect it. It's like opera, right? People either love opera or they're like, it's okay. It's just, I'd rather go do something else on my Friday nights.
All right.
We also have, sorry about that. We also have the website, TilariousGaming.com, where we keep, we have a page there called the Legends and Lore, where you can find more species, new abilities, more spells. I'm actually creating some rules for playing Kralis children, and also Kralis critters, which are basically a larger rift on the smaller world that includes the Mannix, the Balin, and the Sorix beyond that. So more of a Secret of Nim kind of concept, but still using the D100 system and the core rules.
And you can also get merch on there, right? You have shirts.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can get shirts. You can get shirts. You can get stickers. You can get hoodies. Yeah, you can get all of that there. and it all just ships to you. You purchase it, it ships to you.
I highly recommend the Mum Ra t-shirt. It is beautiful.
I'm
I
gonna
have
check
one.
it out.
Well, right behind me, I'd have to move it though, but let's see if I can actually bring this down. Here you go, Steve. So when you're out on your boat and it's a cold winter day, a hoodie.
A Mum Ra hoodie. Doesn't
Mum
that
Ra
look
hoodie.
like Mum Ra?
It
Doesn't it
looks
look
like
like
Mum
Mum
Ra.
Ra?
It does.
Yeah.
But Mum Ra
No,
was
I'm not
awesome.
going to say that it's Mum Ra was awesome. Don't ever miss, the powers of the old gods.
I grew up on.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. Yeah, right? That and He-Man. You could actually play He-Man too.
Yeah. God, I had all the toys.
You want to play He-Man? I had all the toys.
Well, thank you so
But
much for
anyway.
stopping by. It was a total
Thank you for
blast.
inviting me and letting me hang out.
I hope to have you
guys.
back on numerous times. This was a lot of fun, and I definitely want to do that one shot.
I am. We'll definitely do the one shot. I will run you through it. I promise no survivors.
Ooh, even better.
Don't tell us that. That's a challenge. That's a challenge.
Well,
The gauntlet
I
has
promise
been
no
thrown.
survivors.
Well,
All right.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and this will close out this episode of Ronin's Den. We'll catch everybody again next week with another exciting episode. Thank you, and have a great night, everybody.